Hey, darling.
Okay, you guys ready?
Whenever you are.
All right. All right. Welcome to the West Coast Songwriters Conference 2020, our very first virtual conference. And our topic today is creativity during crisis, exploring the new paradigm. And we have a very illustrious, distinguished panel. And I'm going to introduce everyone. But first, I guess I should introduce myself. Larry Batiste, the moderator. I'm a songwriter, a musical director, music producer, arranger, vocalist, educator, and mentor. You can read all the rest of the other stuff on my bio in the program. But I am also a board member of the West Coast Songwriters Association. So here now to introduce the distinguished panelists. I'll start with Demar. Demar is a drummer, multi-instrumentalist, producer, songwriter, singer, educator, entertainer, and motivational speaker. Performed and or recorded with the legendary Little Richard for 17 years, Bobby Rush, Big Jack Johnson, Billy Preston, Carlos Thomas, the late Wee Willie Walker and Anthony Paul Soul Orchestra, currently with Rick Estrin and the Nightcats, and just released a solo album. Multi-talented guy. Richard Harris from Pure Music, songwriter, producer, artist, and mentor. Pure Music and major music libraries. Song placements include TV, film, and ads. Composer for hit shows, including Empire, Nashville, Pretty Little Liars, and Good Trouble. I like that title, Good Trouble. Films include Single Moms Club, This Means War, also commercials and trailers that include the NFL, HBO, Fox TV, and AT&T. And there's so much more about you guys, but I kind of making it a little brief here. And then the veteran, James Bach, my hero.
I'm glad you called me a veteran and not an old woman. I appreciate it.
I just figured out what OG was a little while ago. Older gentleman, right?
Yeah,
But,
you got it.
So, veteran Nashville musician, producer, Grammy-nominated, multiple award-winning hit songwriter. Songwriting credits include Reba McEntire, Joe D. Messina, Colin Ray, Tammy Wynette, the Oak Ridge Boys, and so many more. Multiple TV and radio commercials and so forth and so on. Read more about her later. And then my buddy, Rodney Gordy here, director of licensing at Spirit Production Music, and its sister company, the Music Collective, have placed music in and or music supervised hundreds of hours of feature films and commercials. Notable feature films include Spider-Man Homecoming, Girls Trip, Despicable Me 2, Wolverine, The Dark Knight. TV shows include Wahlburgers, Brooklyn 99, Big Bang Theory, and Scandal. My God. He started his career at the legendary and family-owned Motown Records Corporation. So, thank you all for being here, and we're gonna have a wonderful discussion. I know I really don't know where to start. I guess I could leave it to start with this question being opening to, I'll leave it open to everyone. Oh, I did have a little spiel here. Let me say this. Who would ever thought that we would be in this position in 2020? Some my friends would say it's a mess. But with everything going virtual and galas and all this kind of stuff, and people earning tips from streaming platforms and things like this, we're already creative entrepreneurs. Now this whole COVID thing has taken us to a whole nother level. So today we'll be discussing how COVID-19 has affected your livelihoods and some of the creative and unique ways you're now doing art and business. This means virtual events, performance, collaborations, education, e-commerce, remote recording, and all these things I hope to talk about. So I'd like for you to share your approach to new revenue opportunities during this pandemic. So first of all, I'll leave this open to anyone. How difficult or easy was the transition from conducting your business from regular the way or the online or the virtual, what this whole thing we're doing now? Anyone want to answer that?
I mean, I'm the only girl here, so I'll go first. I'm not shy. Well, I was telling Poppy earlier that for me, very little has actually changed. I work this is where I work in my home. And for the past, well, I've been doing this for 38 years, but for the past 7 or 8 years, I've been doing it from my home. I'm signed to a publishing company in LA and I live in Nashville. So, you know, for me, very little has changed except I don't go out to LA every month. And of course, demoing has changed. I don't have a studio, so I've been doing remote demoing, which has been very interesting. And yeah, it's definitely, even though physically I'm not somewhere I'm not usually, definitely my schedule has changed. And I find I'm actually busier now. And I teach as well. I teach songwriting. And so I've been doing that virtually. And that has really, I started teaching a theater group in Sydney, Australia. And I've been working with a young woman in Johannesburg, South Africa. And I teach some people in north of London in England. So it's been very interesting. You know, you just always, especially in this business, you always have to create opportunities.
Yeah.
They're not going to come knocking at your door generally.
Yeah.
So,
So what type of tools are you using in terms of your collaboration? What are you using?
well, you know, I use, you mean as far as platforms are
Yeah,
concerned?
platforms.
Yeah, it depends. It depends upon what, I can do any platform. I'm just, you know, I have all Apple equipment, and so I can do any platform. A lot of my friends have Android, or they don't have Apple computers, and there are certain things that they can't do. And so we just adjust accordingly. I've done Google Meet, I do Zoom, obviously, FaceTime, any of them, you know, they all work.
Wow, good, fantastic. Well, I to ask D. Mars, since he's one of, personally, from my personal experience, the busiest and hardest working man in show business. As a as a performer, I've worked with him many times. I've been in a band with him and stuff. And man, what I need to know from you is, what are you doing in place of performing self-fulfillment, you know, and income of the gigs, all those multiple gigs, sometimes 2 gigs in one day, you know, what are you doing?
Well, you're right. It was quite a change, because I've said this is the first time in 25 years that I didn't have a gig or a tour to prepare for. So it's like, okay, what do I do? But really, I've been, since January, I've probably been more productive this year than I have into 2019. Because it's like, I got my LLC organized, I got my names trademarked.
Right.
I finally did a top-notch video for my education program. Like, I've really been focusing on making things virtual, and I've been mixing a bunch of records here at home because I have Logic and Pro Tools. So I was like, oh yeah, I'll just kind of do this, and I'm cutting drum tracks. So it's just like, oh yeah, I do one record, and I've been putting stuff out. So I've been starting to get people sending stuff in, and then we started doing these streaming gigs with Greaseland and Kid Anderson. So I think out of the Can't Stop the Blues, I've appeared on maybe 8 concerts, because it turns out that where people were calling me for gigs, they were like, hey, can you come over and record this? So I was like, yeah. So I'm doing that, and then we've been playing on a bunch of records, and of course I've spent a lot of time upping my IQ with Spotify algorithms and Instagram marketing and branding and digital distribution. So I was like, I've just been busy in a whole other way.
Yeah, those are a lot of things to do, and it seems like we all are just getting back to doing things so that we never have time to do. So, oh, I got to do this. I got to, but you don't. Now you have time to get your business together and organize. And but it seems like you already you named about 10 things, that that you're doing all lined up. Now, what about the person who just has no idea, like where to start, like how would you advise them? Where would you say just start with one thing? If I could start with one thing as a performer during this time, what would that be? What should they work on first?
What I would say, because the cool thing about right now is everything is slowed down to where everyone is on the same level.
Mm-hmm.
What I would say to any artist or whatever, just figure out where you want to start. If it's releasing music, whatever, make a plan and just be consistent.
Yes.
If it's writing a song or releasing stuff into the space, be it CD Baby or iTunes, whatever, you just make a plan and start small and build your brand and just stay consistent at it. It's like put out music consistently, just keep writing, keep working. Because like right now, it's like you see the major artists are at home doing the same thing we're doing.
Right? Yes.
And so much so that the distribution company, I think I made a post about it. I do all my stuff through CD Baby. Mm-hmm. And normally you can get stuff out in 2 or 3 weeks, but all of the distribution companies are running like a month behind at least because so many people are at home making music. But I would just say to any artist, just stand where you are, write your song, like make a plan and just follow through.
Yes.
And be consistent. It's like, even if it's small numbers, week to week, month to month, where you see the small increases, but just stay consistent and keep moving forward.
Keep moving forward. That's good advice. Now, Richard and Rodney, you guys are kind of in the same vein. I know that in terms of doing these placements and with the slowing down of production and television and that, how's that affect place? How is your world different there? Any one of you guys? It doesn't matter who answers.
Yeah, well, thanks again for having us on, to Poppy and you guys. It's a pleasure to be amongst such amazing people, and so I feel very lucky to be talking amongst all you guys. I think, and I'm just kind of like going back on the other 2 points, is I think, our business is all about adaptability. I think, the music business is never really stays in one place. And I think, we live and die by our ability to kind of, move and change. My dad was in the business from, the early 50s and kept working up until he's in his 80s, and his mantra was always keep learning, keep adapting, So I think that's one massive part of it. With regards to sync, yes, I think we're in a small lull, especially when it comes to TV production and film production. Things have slowed up. I think we're kind of behind the curve right now, because there were shows that were finished when we hit March and the lockdown, and they were in post, so they were still requesting, stuff to go in the shows. But the shows are probably just about ramping up now, and so we won't start seeing maybe some of this stuff coming through for another 3 months, 4 months. So we're kind of behind the curve in terms of like the dip, I would imagine. However, things in ads have kind of stayed the same a little bit. That's kind of taken a bit of a dip, but I was fortunate that I was asked to do a big library music gig prior to, just as we hit like the shutdown. So I had like a 10-song record to put together, which kind of was already booked. So that kind of carried me for like 6 weeks. So I think for film and TV, we are going to have a bit of a dip, and that's coming. And I think we just have to hold on and keep pushing ahead and looking for more opportunities. And while we're on that keep creating content, which at the end of the day is, there are bargaining chips to play at the table. So it's a case of just keep producing, build relationships with new artists, certainly for me as a producer writer, and build content up for when things start ramping back up again.
You're still building your catalog.
Always. Oh my God.
Always.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that as I say, that's the money in the bank, that's, and it will always change, because obviously in terms of sync, they're always looking for different kinds of music, and there are trends that come along, and then you've written all of those songs with, a ukulele and a banjo and a hey ya and a hey ya and there's 5 million of those tracks gone, so, and they're not using them anymore. So you move on to kind of indie girl swag songs, and we'll be on to something else next, so.
Right. Rodney, I assume it's pretty much the same for you. Are there any ways that you've been, other ways to generate income while we're going through this kind of lull?
Well, Richard eloquently stated, what we're experiencing on the music sync side. Whenever it seems as though things are about to ramp back up production-wise, the people I speak with say, well, looks like maybe another month.
Yeah.
So, things are still slow on the production side. But I think that we're all experiencing what has been happening for the last 20 years, just a move to digital. And if anything, it's put us in a position where we're better suited to take advantage of what's happening now. It's just accelerated it, actually, because it's been moving towards everything being virtual anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So now, like Derek said, the opportunity to really just get down and learn about what is going on is an opportunity. I think, like we all have always heard, there are no problems, there's opportunities. And it seems like everybody on this panel has talked about how they've taken advantage of the opportunities.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that the other songwriters out there will take time to just woodshed. I know a lot of musicians, just on the basic level, it's like, I can just sit at home and practice now.
Yeah.
It's just that simple. I'm not a musician. But one of the things that we've been doing is, since being in sales, it's still a relationship business.
Mm-hmm.
And not being able to see people in person has been a challenge. So I've been doing Zoom lunches, just calling up people. Hey man, I'm going to send you a DoorDash gift card, less at a time, where we can just sit and eat lunch together. And there are people who are like, man, I don't want to sit in front of somebody and eat, but that doesn't matter. I'll still send them a DoorDash. They can eat it whenever they want to. But my main thing is to just sit on face to face. And I've actually met a couple of people that I've talked to on the phone for years and have never met. And I've met them on Zoom. So, there are opportunities out there for us to keep developing relationships. We have a perfect time to actually call people that we haven't spoken to in a while and just say, hey, I'm just calling to see how you're doing, and it gives us an opportunity to develop that personal relationship, because as all you guys know, people are going to work with people that they like.
Yes.
Right.
It's so much a people business, We always tell my kids, your network is your net worth. And so we have to keep that going all the time. And I've actually myself have done a few after hour cocktail gatherings. I'm going, okay, got to get my own damn cocktail. But, we meet, we have drinks, and we talk, and I meet new people, and, it's really cool. I do a lot of stuff with the Recording Academy. And so we've been having those kind of gatherings, mixers, and stuff. So it's been really cool. Now, Demar, I know that I've seen something new out of you. All of a sudden, I've started to see merchandise since this epidemic, this pandemic has happened. All of a sudden, there's mugs and there's what the hell. So And what are you using Shopify? Or can you tell us about your e-commerce that you got going on?
Yeah, I was looking around because like we said, we're always so busy. I had my logo designed 2 years ago, but never had time to follow through on anything. So since we were sitting still, I started looking out. I looked at Shopify, but I found 2 other platforms. StoreFrontier.com was the main one I'm using. And what they do is, it's like a 60-40 split, but you set your stuff up with them and people can order your products from anywhere in the world. And they just design the product when it's ordered, ship it out. And I don't have to do any stocking or anything like that. And then whatever is sold, I just get my 40%. And so I started looking at stuff like that because, when we tour in Italy every summer, I was talking to people like, you guys not going to come? Well, I was like, oh, I have a t-shirt. And I started realizing, oh, they'll buy merch. And then the second company I used was dizzyjams.com. And they did tote bags and mugs. And so I just kind of did the deep dive in stuff that it wouldn't cost me anything to manufacture. And then thinking about the world as a market to where I could sit at home and design stuff. And then you mentioned that, and it actually became another income stream for me because I did it for myself. And I had a couple of friends that, like Kid Anderson owns Greaseland Studios, and he was like, hey, can you set up our merch for us? And as a part of me setting it up, I just keep the profits.
That's awesome.
As payment.
I like that. Now, when you say it doesn't cost anything for you any cost for you, how is that?
Well, it's the way the company makes money is if my fan base orders 100 t-shirts, so they manufacture the t-shirts and send them out, and they make that 60% from those 100 people that they didn't know or didn't have to market. I marketed and brought in 100 people, and they used my logo and they sent the stuff out, and they get a larger percentage of it. But I didn't have to stock anything, mail anything, and all of my fans, whatever, got merchandise.
Now, I assume that you have to have some type of the requirement must be you have to be of a certain profile for them to take this on for you, right? Is that? No? Anybody could do, anybody listening?
Anybody.
I like that.
All you have to have is a logo that's like a PNG file for your logo. You upload it, because the thing is that they put it up, and if nobody orders, there's no harm, no foul. It's just.
Oh, okay. It's like they have to produce the product. Anyway, that's a whole nother thing.
But but it's like they only produce it when it's ordered.
Oh, okay. All right.
Let's see your logo.
Yeah, literally, you click it.
Oh, we want to see your logo.
We want to see it.
Oh, you see my logo.
We want to see your logo.
Yeah, I mean, this is good because we're talking about income streams.
I just so happen to have a Mars sweatshirt.
Oh, that is so cool.
That's great.
Oh, I'm gonna have to order myself one. Is that a hoodie?
Yes, ma'am. That's a hoodie.
That is awesome.
Look at that. Wow.
But it was like it surprised me that it was that simple too, Larry. It's like, oh, that's why I didn't do Shopify, because Shopify, I'm still trying to figure the thing, and it was a bit more involved. You had to have money in this account and stuff. Yeah. But with these guys, you just go in, put your logo, and you can get t-shirts, face masks, hoodies. And
how do the customers pay? Do they pay through PayPal or Venmo or?
Yeah, you can pay through PayPal. They have like several different pay sources that are on the site, but they can service people anywhere in the world.
Oh, that's great.
With no minimum order.
No, none. If it's one shirt, and that's what got me, is because I think once I got my first payment, because I managed my account and 2 other accounts. And I think yesterday I got a check for like $10.38.
Yay!
So it was like, oh, okay, if it's one shirt that gets ordered, okay, they'll send me my piece or whatever. But
wow.
but that's been like what we were talking about creating content during this time. It's like content, merchandising, and there are places like this. And from a business perspective, it's about keeping the overhead low.
Right.
Right.
And when I found stuff like this, I was like, oh, I can put this up. And so as the company, I can have merch, I can have all these things, but I don't have to order it. I can, they can take 60%, but if I have people in France, they want to order a DMAR t-shirt or whatever, they can do it. They get it delivered and everybody's happy.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
I'm going to ask.
But that in particular, that's storefrontier.com.
Storefront. I'm going to write this down.
Check it out. I mean, it's really, it almost sounds, when I looked at it, a friend of mine hit me to it. I was like, man, that's too good to be true.
Yeah.
But it works great.
Storefrontier, like frontier.
Yeah, storefrontier.com. And everything is great quality. The t-shirts are nice.
Yeah.
The hoodies, everything is nice, and the printing comes out great.
Nice. Very good.
Awesome.
A question to anyone. Is there any experience you'd like to share that was unexpected or amazing that's happened through this process, through this paradigm?
For me, I was asked to I got a phone call asking me to put together a virtual benefit for the Alzheimer's Foundation of America. I had done some work for them in the previous years. My mom had Alzheimer's, passed from Alzheimer's. So I had gotten involved with them a number of years ago. And I thought, a virtual benefit. I mean, how do we do this? But it really was not difficult, and it was remarkable. And we had people from all over watching, and we did a 1-hour writers round, just songwriters going around doing their songs. And we raised over $5,000. And I was so pleased. I mean, I really was, considering we had never done this before, and it was all virtual. It was wonderful. That's
probably one of the things you want to continue.
Exactly. Well, I've discovered that there's a number of things that I'm going to continue
absolutely
doing. I mean, seriously, why not? I do, I'm not a performer. I'm a performing songwriter. So I do these writers rounds. I do them all over Nashville. I do them in LA, up in New York, whatever. But so that's not my main source of income. I do make money at it, but really it's negligible. My money comes from my royalties and comes from my teaching and whatever else I do. And like I said, I have a publishing deal, and I do work for the company as well. So it's, but doing these writers rounds virtually is just amazing, because I do have friends all over the world that I can't do them with in normal times because they're not here or I'm not there. But I'm doing one on the 4th of September, and a young woman I work with from Johannesburg is going to be doing it with me, and someone in Santa Cruz, someone in Los Angeles, I'm in Nashville. It's really a wonderful opportunity, not only for us, but it's a wonderful opportunity for people who enjoy hearing fresh new music. The way we do it, of course, is acoustically. And these are songs probably a lot of these people have never heard. We do new songs, whatever. But it's not the money as much as it is the opportunity to gain fans, to gain people, and to bring them into your very enlarged circle of genre. I mean, there's a lot of people that I'm in Nashville, so I do a lot of country, but I also do a lot of pop and R&B. And so it's been a wonderful opportunity. But I'm one of these real geeky people. I just really and truly, I always find that there is a silver lining to everything. And yes, this has been horrible. I mean, there's no doubt about it. My son had the COVID, and being a mother, and now I'm going to cry, being a mother, he lives in Florida, and not being able to be with, he's a grown man, but not being able, he's my baby, and not being able to be with him when he was so sick. It's just horrible. Thank God he's fine. He's out the other side. And but it's been awful. I know people that unfortunately have not made it. And it's just, it's horrible. It's horrible. But there is a silver lining to everything. And that's, to me, what you need to search out. You need to search out the opportunity to build relationships, because you're right, it is all about relationships.
Yeah, it is.
And for
Oh,
sure.
now what about most of your money is royalty income? Now, you know, when this COVID thing first started, it was like, okay, we're gonna push our release date back a few months. Now we're at those few months.
Oh, tell me, by the end of the year, my royalty income's going to go up.
Yeah, this thing is still going strong.
Because getting paid for what is not happening right now, you know. But I am, you know, I have to tell you, and this is, I am fairly prolific. I do, because I write all the time. And, but I discovered that as of last week, since my incarceration on March 13th, I have written over 140 songs.
Wow.
And so, I mean, it's insane. It's absolutely insane. And, you know, I have the people that I work with, the script supervisors, whoever, contacting me and saying, now I'm getting more calls for, you know, looking for placements. So, well, yay, you know what? I have more product now that I can cull through and see if I have something that they may be looking for. But yeah, interesting.
Now, to stray from COVID a little bit, I just want to ask the music supervisors, and what advice do you give to someone trying to break into the business that you're in terms of them being a writer or producer, trying to, what advice would you give someone trying to break into your world?
You want me to go? Okay, shall I? Okay, well, I'm not a music supervisor for a start. I'm a content provider for music supervisors and a mentor and a teacher as well. And I think, you know, it's like any part of this business, you have to build up your network. You know, you have to start learning what sync is, what the requirements are, because you know, there are so many as a songwriter that started out writing songs on an acoustic guitar or a piano, and then, you know, presenting it to an artist who then cuts it. I mean, those days are not, it doesn't happen much like that anymore, as we all know. And then I became a producer. I mean, I was always a producer, but I became more of a producer writer, because that's kind of what the role kind of I found myself falling into more and more as I was, you know, working in the business. And I then had to wrap my head around sync. And I was always into it, but it was never something that became a priority until probably about 5 or 6 years ago, when I started to really get involved with sync camps and writing for film and TV, and starting to understand the nuance of what that is. And really starting to focus in on what artists work, rather than trying to, you know, just write a song and hoping to God it finds a scene with the right people in the right emotion at the right time for that song. There were certain things that just kept coming up in terms of what they were looking for, and how the music progressed, and how it built, and how it had all these dynamics in it. And so I just kind of got my head into it and just kept learning. And as a person that obviously isn't, you know, 22, I've been learning a long time. And you just, again, it's about this adapting to the role that you find yourself getting your work from, you know. And as a mentor, this is something we've been doing. I run a company called Songwriter Camps with Pam Shane. People might know who Pam is. She wrote Genie in a Bottle for Christina and a bunch of other massive hits. And Songwriter Camps came along, and we were doing like proper songwriting camps for people that weren't signed, who wanted to learn about writing in that sort of environment. And we were doing those in the Ace Hotel in Palm Springs. And of course, when COVID came along, that we had to cancel the camp for this year, obviously. And we decided to go online, and we actually ended up putting together a sync camp for writers trying to get into the business. And that's coming up in September, and we've sold out, thankfully, for that. And we have the Guild of Music Supervisors come on board, Disco, bunch of companies. And so, you know, it's a long answer to a very short question, but it's about digging your head into what it is sync means, and what you have to do, what the difference is between what you would do. I mean, look at it this way. If you're writing for an artist, you do your research on the artist. You find out what key do they sing in, what kind of subjects do they like, you know, those kind of things. And that's kind of what you need to do when you start working in the sync world. You start to find out what it is that works, and you can't write everything to cookie cutter sort of ideas. You just have to be kind of cognizant of those things while you're writing a song, so that you don't fall into any small little traps here and there.
Now you're looking for more, it sounds like, in terms of the presentation, it's more of the, you have to have the production there. It's not just the songwriter, because there's no time or no budget a lot of times for like, okay, now I like your song, now we're going to produce it. Now, when you hear a song that you could place, the production, everything's got to be there so it's ready to fly. Am I correct?
Oh God, yeah. I mean, and I'll let Rodney obviously elaborate on that, but it's everything. You're competing against records, you know, and people that have got big budgets. So you have got to make this thing sound like it's going to be on a record that's coming out on the radio.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, you know, and I think people have to get used to the idea there's a difference between a production and a demo. A demo is a song that's recorded nicely, sounds great, but has nothing to say creatively sometimes, you know. And I'm not demeaning demos, but I'm saying a production is a production. Production is, how does this sound? What is this instrument doing? Why is it saying what it's saying? You know, it's like, it's just not played. It's been treated as much as a part of the songwriting as the lyric and the melody, you know.
Yeah. Rodney, you want to add to that? And also for our viewers that don't know, maybe talk about the submission format, you know.
I got to stop going after Richard because he always says everything I'm going to say.
Sorry, mate.
Yeah, no, that's okay. I mean, you're an experienced industry vet, and you hit it on the head. And like I said earlier, it's almost as though everything that's happened prior to this has kind of set us up for this. The fact that when I got into the industry, you had to go to a studio, you had to hire an engineer, you had to hire musicians. And over time, it's been that you've been able to become more self-sufficient in your house. And now, if you're talented, you can make some really, really good sounding stuff in your home. And the emphasis only puts it only puts even more emphasis where your stuff's got to be hot. It's got to be together. And I'd like to hear from the panel, really, because you're absolutely right. The advantage we had before is that we knew who to go to. We had personal relationships with the people who were looking for things. Now, as Derek said, the playing field's kind of been leveled where everybody's at home, everybody's getting material through the internet. So even a guy somewhere else can get to that music supervisor that he might not have been able to get to before, because everybody's scanning their emails all the time and they're all looking for something online. So my question and my challenge always has been, how do you guys get your stuff to break through all the clutter, especially now that before our stuff would break through because the clutter was just subpar. But now that the level is risen, how do you guys make your stuff break through when a lot of good stuff is out?
Yes.
If I can say something, for me personally, I'm not a music supervisor. I deal with music supervisors. I do have people, my company has people that they've hired that do that. And they'll contact me and they'll say, this is what I'm looking for. And if I have something, because as a songwriter, writing for sync is different than writing to see if Faith Hill is going to cut or if Miranda Lambert's going to cut a song. So the whole approach to the production is different. And when you were saying about going in and making sure that you're basically doing a record, well, we've been doing that in Nashville really and truly for quite a long time. Our demos, always, I would say for the last 15 years, maybe even longer, they have to be record quality. And what will happen is, I was with Warner Chappell for a very long time, and I would give them something, I would demo it, and they would literally separate it. Well, this we can use to pitch for commercials, or this we can use to pitch for sync. Oh, this we can pitch to use for artists. And I realized, and I took courses. I thought, well, I've been doing this for almost 20 years. What do I have to learn? Plenty, and you take courses, you read books, you reach out to people who are doing it and say, how are you doing that? What am I doing that I'm not doing right? And it's a learning process. There's a big learning curve. But I do produce, but I don't have a studio in my house. I don't have the inclination to do that. And so I go to other studios. Now I haven't been, so I've been doing it remotely. And there are so many people, we call them track guys, even the girls, they're track guys. They do such amazing, amazing tracks. I don't know if you all know David Scheibner. I don't know, if you know David or not. David's right outside of San Francisco. And David has done a ton of movie tracks and TV work. And I just did something with him, just as an example. I work with a young woman who actually lives in Sydney. She just signed to Republic out of LA. And so she's, they're putting out singles on her right now. But she and I had written a song that isn't really for her. And I always felt it would be great for for sync. It would be great. So I spoke to David. We did a virtual meeting. I played him the song. I sent him the work tape. And over Zoom, we did this track. And it's phenomenal. I mean, I'm so excited. I've never done anything like that before virtually. It was wonderful. But, it's a matter of pushing yourself to the limit and then going beyond and realizing this has to be the very, very best, because the competition, and I love competition, because the competition, I love competition. And because the competition is so intense. I mean, yes, everybody has Pro Tools. You've got 15-year-old kids sitting in their bedroom with their Pro Tool rig, going on YouTube, and you go, oh my God, what are they doing? Are you kidding me? They're phenomenal. Yeah. So it's,
competition is really good. I mean, like, from my reading about the Motown days, Rodney, where Holland Dozier, Holland would be in one room and Smokey would be in another. Tell me if this is really true or not. You got the inside. But how the writers would compete against each other, for the next single and the different artists. And it was like a healthy competition.
Well, competition only makes you have to be the best you can be. So, I mean, that's what I love about it. It pushes you. Great.
Rodney, I'm going to circle back to you, because maybe some of our members may not be familiar with it. If you're trying to submit something to somebody like yourself, what format should they present it to you in?
Well, initially MP3, because it's just, a small enough file that it can be emailed to me. If I'm interested and I want a cleaner file, then I can request a AIFF or a WAV. But everything via email with a link to their SoundCloud, to their site, whatever. It's a link world now, so they send me a link.
Okay, but eventually, would you want different versions? Like, if you really like the song, what do you ask for? Instrumental versions? Do you need those type of things? TV mixes?
Yeah, ultimately, if it's something that we want to work with, I wouldn't request that up in advance. Only if we get that far down the line where we want stems. Now, a lot of people want stems. Everybody wants stems.
Yeah, I've run into a lot of people who have maybe written something years ago, and then they say, oh, they find somebody interested in it, and then they say, yeah, I want the instrumental version. They say, oh my God, I don't even know where the engineer is now.
Oh yeah. Oh, we had a situation like that last week where somebody wanted something for a trailer, and they said, yeah, do you guys have the stems? And the writer had to go back and reproduce the session, because it was not reproduce the session, but pull up the session and then split out the stems, because nobody gave a damn about stems a few years ago. Now everybody wants stems.
Everybody wants stems.
Indeed.
Let's see. What can I ask you guys?
Well, I'd like to hear from Richard and Derek as far as how do they get their things to stand out from the onslaught of material that these people are receiving nowadays.
Good question.
Well, I send my cassettes with $20 bills wrapped around them.
Old school.
Old school, man. Old school.
Hey, listen, at least he's not using 8-track.
Yeah, I could have gone there, but I don't think anybody would remember 8-track.
I remember.
I know you guys would. I'm talking about the kids who are watching. I go, 8-track? What the hell is that? You know, I think, look, you listen to records. I mean, that's what you do. I mean, you know, your biggest tutor is sitting right there in iTunes and Spotify and everything else. You know, you have to listen every day. When I teach songwriters, go listen. You think you know what you're doing, but just start breaking music down. I call it active listening. We passively listen most of the time. We just let music wash over us and let it move us and do that. That's great, because that's what music's about. Art just goes in and through you and you react to it. But our job is to dig in, get in the weeds and start pulling things out and go, why does that work there? What did they do? Why did the drums drop out there? It makes no sense for there to be no rhythm there, but what it did, it gave everything a breath.
Yes.
And it attracts you back into the song. It attracts you into that moment because your brain's going something different and then you're pulling in. Just you just have to listen and then figure out if you can do it and I've been producing for a long time and of course back in the day when it was in a studio with a big console and the whole thing. Now it's all in the box. I think you have to love it. I think you have to get some geeky thing from producing. If you don't, and I was a point I was going to make to an earlier question you had, find your people to work with. You know, if you're a great top liner or an artist that top lines, find a great producer. Somebody that can kind of bounce around genres a bit, not too much where they don't get good at something, and somebody that's got something to say and has a thing about it and then can mix it properly. And if they can't mix it, get somebody in to mix it. It makes it sound great. And I think then you'll start punching through, you know.
Right.
You've got to make things sound interesting.
Yeah.
You know, you listen to records from way back and you'll listen to it, and if you listen to it with the ears on you have now and you go, oh my lord, that vocal is buried. I mean, what the hell were they thinking?
What were they thinking?
But they were all in a room together at the same time with like maybe 3 mics, and you were lucky that you got what you got. But it had more to do with all the things that were within the song itself. The song obviously is always the king and the queen of everything, and the vocal, and then everything else goes underneath that, but everything's doing its part to make that feel cool and interesting.
Great conversation.
And sometimes it doesn't have to sound like it was recorded on a Neve console going through a U87 mic, you know, and all that stuff, you know. It has to have a thing about it.
Okay.
Well, I'll say to Rodney's question is, I have a 21-year-old son that's in the industry, and he's been making records for a long time. And I've always worked with a bunch of younger people. And a lot of my son's friends are what they call influencers. So what I've had to learn about the new paradigm that exists in the music industry is it's truly the cart before the horse. The way you break through, I hate to say this, but it's so true, has nothing at all to do with the music. It's your image, your present, because you can look at through a lot of the Instagram tutorials and stuff. I'm like, well, how is it? Like I think it was last year, they started giving record deals to people that were not even musicians, but they had millions of followers
It's
on
branding.
TikTok or Instagram. And it was like, you know what? All we care about is the followers. We'll make that music thing happen later. But for those of us that are musicians, because for myself, I try, like, you know, it's like people have attention deficit disorder, where they say, well, you know, normally it takes us a year to make a record. You put a record out and you can sit on that. Now you put an album out, people listen to that album all the way through, and then they say, yo, what you got next? Right. So now it's under, like, the way you stay. And what I started doing, I had a producer I talked to, and like I guess a marketing exec. She was like, look, what you do is you finish your album. If your album has 15 songs, you release 6 singles from that record in 3-week increments apart. Every 3 weeks, you drop a new single. Week 7, you drop the whole album. 3 months after that, you start the whole process over with a new record. But for every single, you got to have the right photos. You got to have the right video content. And then it's different. And what I've been doing, and like for myself, it's like, well, what is it? Like, I'm making music, but I started to realize is that people are not listening to the music. But if I post a video of me playing drums and they see me jump over the drums, that's the video they access. And then they listen to the music. And I'm like, wait a minute, but people, oh man, that song was great. But I was like, well, the song has been out for a time, but I noticed that they only are accessing things now based on what they see. It's kind of like Lady Gaga. Before she was Lady Gaga, she was an amazing artist, but she had this kind of teeny bopper image. Nobody listened to anything, but she created Lady Gaga, and people bought into that image, cart before the horse thing. And now it's really about that. And I'll mention like one of the groups, the Migos, young group, super successful out of Atlanta. They recorded all their music in their basement. And when you listen to the mixes, it's kind of like, what is this? But they sold millions of records. The second or third record, they put them in the studio with top producers and the whole thing. And these guys are like, yo, man, this doesn't sound like us. So they went back to their basement. And it's like, and when I listen to the record, I'm like, yo, the bass is too loud. It's too this or whatever. But they created a market of people that liked what they were doing. So it's in terms of breaking through, it's like you have to really be aware that nowadays it's such an image and visually driven market that you can have amazing music, but if your marketing and visual and social media piece is not as good as the music, it won't ever break through.
Yeah, it's like
all about branding, isn't it? I mean, it's all about creating something that doesn't exist yet.
Absolutely.
And then bringing everybody into that fantasy that you've created. That's exactly, and hopefully you have the product to sustain it.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like, that's why I say it's cart before the horse, because like Cardi B. Yeah. She was a social media phenom, and then they were like, oh yeah, you should make records. And they just attached the music, and it's like, basically now the most successful musicians are in the marketing and advertising business. That's really what it is, and music is just a component of marketing and advertising.
And I think what's happened is, you look back over the decades, that was the record company role a lot of the time. They had those marketing machines, that kind of basically molded. I mean, Britney Spears wasn't Britney Spears until, So, and that goes all the way back to the 60s. I mean, you got plenty of people that came along that just had a voice, and they created this whole ecosystem around them, and then had the marketing spend to be able to build that brand. Now, as an independent artist, you have to do that yourself. And I think the most successful artists, I think, without trying to tell everybody, forget the music and just make sure you're an influencer, I think that carries quite a lot. I think the music will definitely service the whole, but the ecosystem of an artist is so vitally important in terms of how it looks, how it feels, how it tastes. I know that sounds kind of weird, but it's like artists need to kind of get a grip of who this artist is. A lot of it comes natural, but some of it doesn't. You know, how are you going to perform when you're on stage? Where do you go with this? What is the band behind you going to look like?
But isn't that what the label used to do? They would develop an artist.
Yeah, and
they would do artist development. They don't really do that much anymore.
No, they want to come on board when you've got 500,000 followers and then basically just press records for you.
You know, I was going to say, when Derek was talking, or Demar, you know, about the whole Lady Gaga thing, you know, and I do a lot of work with Grammys, and it was all about how Lady Gaga was going to arrive. You know, is she going to jump out of a cake, or is she going to whatever, you know, what is she wearing, that whole thing. And we went through all this business, and I'm going, after listening to her, I'm going, she can really sing.
Oh, yeah, and play.
Badass. You know, she's really, I mean, she's ultra talented. But we went through all that of getting to know her first, her personality, and her, and like, is exactly what you guys are saying about breaking through, being unique. Jane is talking about branding, all that happening first, you know, then breaking through. Then, but after you get through, you actually have to have a good song.
Exactly.
Yeah, you gotta have something to give the people.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that stands out against everybody else, you know.
Yeah, but there's so much a part of it. So we're wrapping up here, but I want to ask, and anybody can answer this, you know, what are the blessings that's come out of COVID-19, and what things are you going to keep long after this virus is gone? What type of things you want to hold on to in your lives? Anyone could start.
I'll start. I got 2 young kids. My son is 11 and my daughter's 9, and my wife's a school teacher, and so we've all been at home since March, and I have loved every minute of having them home all the time. You know, the studio's under the house, so I'm always here. And I got to say, that's been the greatest upside. You know, yes, have they probably fallen somewhat behind in school studies? And I've said to them, look, my dad lived through the Second World War in London, and that was 4 or 5 years long, you know, and he came out okay and did pretty well with his life. So I said, you know, even if this lasts for a year, we're going to just make the most of us being together, you know, being together as a family and enjoying the time together, because this time next year we're all going to be back on those treadmills running like crazy,
little hamsters,
trying to bounce into each other at breakfast time and dinner time, you know. So that's definitely been the upside for me.
Yeah, I would echo the same sentiment. It's having the time to slow down. I have 7-year-old twin boys at home, and we start the next phase of homeschooling on Thursday, and it's like, it's a lot of work, but just having the time to be here every day and see them, to the point that last few weeks when I start to have to go out to sessions at another place or something, and I come back and they're like, where have you been? Like, why did you leave? You supposed to? But I'm enjoying this time too. It's like, well, we'll get back to that. I know we will. So I'm just enjoying the slow down and time to just be with family.
Nice.
I think for me, that truly has been the biggest blessing, is the slowing down. Mm-hmm. Even though I'm literally busier than I've ever been, it's at a different pace. And I've realized that I can pace myself and still get a lot done. Unfortunately, you know, I'm older and my children are grown. I'm a grandmother. I have grandchildren. That has been the hardest, is that I can see my children. They come over, but they can't come near me. and I have a 5-year-old grandson that lives up the road from me, and he comes over and he says to me, he stands outside on the deck, and we're in the kitchen, you know, and he says, Grandma, I miss kissing you. Oh my God. Oh my God. Yeah, I know, I melt. Oh my goodness. But, you know, I mean, it is, truthfully, we just have to deal with what it is and put on our big girl and big boy pants and just muddle through it. But I think the slowing down has been the biggest blessing for me. My husband, last year we spent with my husband dealing with cancer and chemo and all of that. He's cancer free now, thank the Lord. But so that was, I would rather, you know, have to stay home and slow down and deal with this. So,
What things are you guys going to keep? What are you going to keep from this? That's
a lot of the virtual working.
yeah.
I
Mhm.
love
Yes.
I write over Zoom or whatever, Google Meet. And I mean, you could have, when I co-write, I can have 2 separate co-writing sessions in a day. I don't even get out of my pajamas. True. I mean, you know, I'm in my sweats all the time. And I got dressed today. And
Thank you.
yes, you're very welcome. Trust me. Trust me, it's a thank you. But you know, I think just realizing, and I hate to say this, it makes me sound like an old fogey, but realizing what's important
Yes.
and realizing, you know, boy, that really never mattered to begin with. And I really believe I've been very blessed and I've done well as far as getting a lot of songs recorded and having #1 hits. But the reality of it is the work. The reality of it is the actual songwriting. The reality of it is doing what I feel I was put on this earth to do, and just enjoying it. And really, I love it. I do. And that's what I'm going to keep is
I
that.
think Jane hit it on the head. I think everybody has talked about being more intentional. The thought that actually has gone into what we're going to do with our time.
Yeah.
I mean, really, honestly, if we wanted to, we could just sit around and watch Real Housewives every day if we wanted to, all day long, just binge watch, you know, TV. But it sounds like everybody on this call has made it a point to put some time into their craft. I love what Derek said as far as just really just learning new things. I haven't really learned new things, but I have set aside time to read more, spend time more with my wife, you know, work out. So those kind of things. And I still have time because this pandemic's going nowhere to, you know, put a little bit more thought into learning some new things. And then just be grateful because look at this, really, like Jane said, a lot of people are experiencing horrible experiences, and we are so fortunate to be able to do what we do that there's not a day that doesn't go by that I don't send some gratitude to whatever is out there for the ability to do what we do.
Yeah, I mean, all we have to do is stay in the house and work. We're not on a ventilator. We're not, you know what I'm saying? I mean, it's a blessing. So, hey, look, you guys, I think our time, we might be a minute over, but this has been so interesting. I was telling Jane I could talk to you for 3 days. And these
This has been so wonderful. It's just been wonderful meeting you all.
Yes.
And listening to your stories. I am humbled. I really and truly am so humbled. It's wonderful.
So really, I thank all of you for taking your valuable time.
Thank you.
You know,